Welcome to the Youth Room. I'm Ariana Giannani and I am your host for the first ever youth-led program in GBC. From the people behind the cameras to the director to the gallery and sound, all people involved are students gaining hands-on experience in media production while exploring topics which matter to us. Today I am joined by Liam Byrne, a sports coach, Christina Linares, a former athlete, and Sean Collado, a sports development officer from GSLA. Thank you very much for being here today.
No problem.
So if we could talk a little bit more about what you guys do and how you're involved in sports, that would be great.
I go first. So basically I've been involved in sports from quite a young age. I probably started my involvement in athletics when I was 8 or 9 years old because I had some heart trouble. And it's recommended that I strengthen it through exercise. So that's probably where my journey started. And obviously then I got really involved in it, got bitten by the bug, started competing, had my competitive period of life, so as to speak. And then from then, I thought it was just a natural transition to give back to the sport that had given so much to me. And I decided to take up coaching and try and impart my own philosophies on the next generation.
And out of curiosity, what sport is it that you're specialised in?
I coach athletics, mainly sprints, 100 metres up to 400, maybe the 800. That's as far as I go.
Couldn't be me. Sounds amazing.
Maybe.
And what about yourself, Christina?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been involved in sports, like Liam said, since I was a child. Both my parents studied education and did a lot of focus on physical education. So it's just always been something I've been surrounded by, moving all the time. I think I was a very active kid. I had a lot of energy. So I think my parents just put me in lots of activities and sports. Then obviously as I got a bit older, you kind of refine what you enjoy and got involved with swimming up. It started when I was quite young, but got involved more competitively at about age 13 for the Bermuda Island Games. So yeah, I was very young at the time and then basically was swimming and competing up until about the age of 19, 20, went off to uni, focused on my studies. And yeah, I guess swimming and sports has always been something I'm involved in up until this day, something that I can't really live without. So yeah, very, very moving all the time.
Sounds fantastic. And what about yourself, Sean?
Similar to Christina, when I was younger, I was involved in quite a lot of sports. And then I found a passion for athletics where I trained with Liam towards the start of my career and probably the end of his. I guess that's debatable depending on who you ask. And yeah, I represented Gibraltar for a number of years internationally in athletics competitions. But I also had a big involvement in the GSLA Summer Sports and Leisure Programme. I started off there as a volunteer and built my way up to become a sports leader, a leader in charge, and now I'm one of the managers on the summer sports program. So somehow I started at the bottom and now I have got to working with some very talented people and the next generation of sports people within Gibraltar.
So what's interesting is that all of you are commonly started sports from a young age. And interestingly enough, we went down to Europa Stadium today and interviewed some people at the GSLA Summer Sports.
We're here this morning at Victoria Stadium with a GBC youth-led programme to ask young people at the GSLA Summer Camp about sports and extracurriculars and how it's affected them. How did you get into this Young Leaders programme?
I got into it because I knew people that were doing it, and I also came here previously when I was younger, so I was one of these kids. And then I just did level 1 a couple of years back, and from then on I just loved it and just carried on doing it.
My parents used to drop me off. I really enjoyed coming, so I kept coming throughout the summers, and then I went into doing my level 1, level 2 courses and then into leadership.
So I am very interested in sports. I play netball for Gibraltar and I've been playing for many years now. In the future, I'm doing a master's now in diagnostic radiography, but I definitely want to do a coaching course on the side and hopefully become a netball coach in the future. So competition affects the children's participation, and it ranges from 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to the older age groups that we have. In 5 to 6, 7 to 8, we know that the children are here because their parents kind of want them to be here. They force them. And we normally focus competition on like team play, sportsmanship, integration, whereas for the older age groups, the ones who more like want to be here, we focus it on first place, second place, third place, because that's how it is in school. So we try of them to get a feel for it before they go back into school.
Personally, I think the 9 to 10s age group probably benefits the most, because that's where they're like developing in the foundation of their skills to a sporting level at that point, and they start going into like more competition-based things, and that's when they start to like really start to find what sport they want to do and where they can go into for the future. So I think the 9 to 10 age group is probably the best for that.
You make friends throughout the whole process. It becomes more of not just colleagues, but they become your friends in the outside world as well, outside of summer.
Yeah, and not even that, but knowing that you're giving the parents a respite as well during the morning, and knowing that the children will be safe and they know that they're having fun here and stay and play just makes it better.
Balance between you having a good time and them having a good time is what makes them have a good time. So just make sure that you're enjoying yourself, because if you're not, they won't be either.
A lot of the children that come in that are forced by parents tend to enjoy the program as they go along. So I think maybe that push that they get at the beginning might be get a bit of resistance at the beginning, but then as they see that they start to enjoy the games that they put on, the leaders getting them involved, and they start to find their own little area where they succeed, I think they start to realize that there's a place for everyone in sport if they just find the right one for them.
I do gymnastics. I do canoeing, basketball, swimming and drums. I do art.
And there you have it. Thanks to the GSLA summer camp, we know that our kids are in good hands, and that the camp leaders not only have a great future themselves, but they're consolidating the kids' future as well.
So what's interesting about that is that in GSLA there are so many people involved of different age groups. You have the kids who are training, you have adolescents and teenagers who are the leaders, and then you have official employees as adults. So to continue that point, I would like to discuss the roles of sports in Gibraltar and how it affects all sorts of age ranges and different groups in society.
It's quite obvious that sports is very good for your physical health, I guess, no? So getting into sports keeps you fit and healthy. But I think the element that a lot of people don't realise is the kind of structure it gives kids, the teamwork, working with other people. I think we all very much focus on academics and, you know, doing well in your sport, but I think as well it really builds people's social skills. Kids can work with other kids, they work as a team. And then also just the mental side of it, what that brings you as well. Obviously, biologically, it brings you the endorphins, it brings you all those kind of things, but it also brings you some form of, structure, routine, and it brings you that drive. I think these are elements of sports, generally speaking, that people don't really realise. It's more the social aspect, the mental aspect, as well as obviously the physical aspect that sports and activities bring for people.
100%. And a couple of the leaders mentioned how some kids are forced to go to summer camps. Me as a child, I remember going to swimming. Christina may not like me after this, but I remember being forced to go to swimming lessons and hating it. And now I don't really feel like I enjoy swimming. So do you still see that as a big issue being a GSLA leader?
I think it's a catch-22, because we can understand that the parents who work want to have that childcare available for them, but then again, we don't want the children's first experience of sports being something that they've been forced into and not enjoying. And going back to what they said there on the clip, I think it's very important that during the training that our staff receive, they are always told to keep on trying and to try and compromise with the children, because, for example, on sports train, they change the sports that they lead every single day. So, for example, we tend to get all the time that the girls tend to dislike football. They much rather do netball. So what we try to do is we'll use that to advantage, say, look, today is football, but if you participate in football today, we will then give you netball tomorrow. And what we try to do with that is put them in groups with their friends in in those circumstances, because that way they feel that they'll enjoy the activity more, rather than say, this is what you're going to do today. Because if we have that sort of approach, we don't want those children going home with those memories saying, I've gone to sports today, whether it's sports training or any other sport, and saying, I didn't have a good time, I'm not going to come back. And I think that's probably the ethos of most coaches.
And how do you train or select your leaders for GSLA? Because obviously teenagers, they must be accustomed to being with children, and obviously you have a new program for children with disabilities, and people require very specific skills to do that. So run us through your process of training.
So the way that the program works is we have probably roughly around a team of around 200 employees / volunteers who run the summer sports program. So we have 14 and 15-year-olds who come in and start off their level 1 sports leadership award, and they basically get introduced to the basics of coaching, how to manage groups of children, how to control them using grids, to try and make their life a lot easier. So it's more introduce them into the complete basics. From there, then once they turn 16, they can start to undertake the level 2 sports leadership awards, which goes into a bit more depth of managing difficult situations, how to handle parents, going into more sport-specific areas. And once they've got that level 2, they're able to apply for a job with us. So our minimum requirement for leaders to work on the sports train, because we have the sports train, the stay and play, and then the LSF, which is what we just mentioned. So I'm trying to keep it as simple as we can. They need to have either a sport-specific coaching qualification or a minimum of the level 2, because that way we know that they've grasped the basic concepts to be able to lead those sessions. Because as this year we've had over 1,000 children sign up, it can be challenging at times. So we need to make sure that we're putting our staff there, who are sometimes as young as 16, in a safe and comfortable environment that they're able to do so. With the LSF program, it's slightly different because they can be dealing with different situations. So what we do is we merge their training with what they do on the sports train and with those on the stay and play, because the stay and play is the other program that we run for children with disabilities. So we give them sort of a bit of a hybrid training, and we've partnered with Possibilities for that, who supply the staff for there. And again, they're normally between the ages of 16 and mid-20s.
Sounds like you've got it all sorted out. And Liam, you train people of all ages. How do you see the attitude of people change depending on their age?
Obviously, I've been involved for a while now. I would say, not solely with the age, I would also say generationally. I think nowadays it's a lot harder to get kids into sports. I think there is a lot of other activities that aren't active, so to say, which draws them away from wanting to be active. But in terms of ages, I think after a certain point, those that you're coaching want to be there. And from a coaching perspective, I think that's where you get the most reward, when the athlete that you're coaching wants to improve, because then it's a give and take relationship. You know, I'm offering a service, I'm trying to develop them as an athlete. They've got to want to develop and give back with their hard work. And then it really works. Sometimes you get kids and you can tell that they don't really want to be there. The parents want them involved in a sport. And look, personally, I think it's important as parents, because as well as a coach, I am a parent. I think it's important to get your kids involved in activities, to get involved in sports, because it does instill a level of discipline. It's good for your health, both physically and mentally. So I think it's really, really important. But by the same design, I think it's a fine line. I think it's really important that when we do get our children involved in an activity, it's got to be kind of their choice. So you don't give them the full choice, because then they're just going to pick the most comfortable option. But you've got to give them options of which they're going to pick the one they enjoy the most. And I always said to my kids growing up, I said, look, if you want to stop doing this, that's fine, but you've got to pick something else. Whatever you want to do, we'll support it, but you've got to do something. And as we go through the education system, there are stresses in school, and a lot of kids you see, they're like, oh, well, I'm doing my GCSEs, I can't go training, or I'm doing my A-levels, I can't go training, or I'm doing a degree and I can't go training. And that, unfortunately, that's a misconception. I think that is the point where the discipline side of things is really, really important, because you need that outlet as well. If you're just purely focused on your academics, that can be very, very stressful. Just if you're purely focused on your sport, same situation. So I think it's really important that they have that balance. There is an outlet. Your sport, if you like, or whether it be sport or dance or whatever it is, that is going to be your outlet. It's kind of like where you get to let off some steam. It's a focus that is for your own gain. Whereas sometimes the academic side of things, you're trying to tick boxes to get to your final goal. And I mean, I think we've all been through the education system. You're doing your GCSEs, you're doing your A-levels, and sometimes the subjects that you don't have a massive interest in. But the system dictates that you've got to do them to get on to the next step, no? And in uni, again, if they're away from home for the first time, and they can become overwhelmed by that circumstance. And I think if they straight away when they arrive in university, if they're able to either continue with that discipline that they've developed growing up locally, they can carry that with them, and then they can join either one of the university teams or a club team or a social or something where they've got another outlet which is beyond study your dorm room, study your dorm room, because I think that's where people's mental health suffers a lot as well. So basically, in a nutshell, we're talking about they're going to improve as individuals with discipline. They're going to learn a lot about themselves and how far they can push themselves. It's going to also reflect on their ability to study too, because the discipline transcends everything.
Yes.
It carries over into other walks of life.
Yeah,
and then their mental health too, you know.
Exactly,
I think it's really, really important.
I'll be honest, I'm a victim to this in somewhat. Having sat my GCSEs, it is very hard to find the balance between focusing on school and maintaining your extracurricular activities. So on that topic, we've established that sports and extracurriculars are positive for young people, both mentally and physically. However, if we look at the flip side, there can be a lot of strain on young people, and I would like to know your philosophy on where to draw the line, because a lot of the time when people become teenagers, they are expected to commit. Sometimes it's too much commitment to sports or other clubs.
That's a very difficult question to answer, because I think different individuals are driven differently. You've got highly competitive individuals.
Yes.
And they want to win at everything.
Right.
Then you've got others who are just along for the ride. Sometimes those are the happier ones.
Yes.
But it's very difficult to convince a highly competitive individual that what they're doing is not important. I think as a coach, sometimes you've got to be a psychologist as well, and you're a part-time counsellor, you know, and a lot of other, and you've got parents on the other side, and they're pushing their kids also in certain directions. And it's a very tricky situation to manage, because obviously you don't ever want to get involved with that child's parenting, but at the same time, you've got to recognise if they are receiving pressures from elsewhere, that you're not adding to that pressure too. So it's really important that you're helping them feel, when they're within your environment, so to speak, they feel that a little bit of pressure has been taken away. Yep. So it's difficult, because as a coach, you want them to win. That's your job. Your job as a coach is to get the best out of your athlete. But I think it needs to be done in a healthy way. I think you really need to recognise the signs when your athlete is stressed, be it internally or externally, and say, okay, we need to ease off a little bit here. Maybe have a chat with, you know, especially when they're under 18, you know, you need to have a chat with their parents, get them involved. Do you have any concerns? 99.9% of the time, the parents are going to be completely on board with it, you know? So, and then if there is any times where they're not, that's when you've got to tread a little bit more carefully, and that's maybe where you need to speak to other professionals in the field.
And
maybe GSLA, for example.
Christina, you mentioned how you grew up playing swimming, and obviously you had to go through school like everyone else. So how did you balance that? Did you feel external pressure from your coaches or your parents, or...?
I mean, again, like Liam says, I think it really depends on the person. I think because I started swimming before my A-levels and GCSEs, the swimming for me was like literally second nature. Like I was on autopilot, as in like I would go to school, I would have maybe an hour and a half after school, and it was just natural for me to go training. And then I would study in the evening, and I had already kind of had that discipline kind of instilled within me before my GCSEs and A-levels. But I would say, like, the best way to deal with these situations is coming off what Liam said, which is getting support from not only your parents or whoever you have in your family to support you, but also your coach. I think it's the responsibility of a coach to make training an environment where, yes, absolutely, you do have to push hard in training, and you do want to get good times, or whatever sport you do, you want to perform well. I think it's also really important for the coach to create an environment that you want to go to, that is a break from studying. Because if you have studying, and studying for some people is like, I did not enjoy studying at all. it's not an enjoyable time for someone. So can you imagine going from maybe an hour after school studying and then going somewhere where it's miserable and then you're being pushed to the brink and you're depressed or you're anxious or you're stressed. And I think it's a really big responsibility of the coach to find that balance of, obviously we want to train you hard, but also look, I'm here to support you. Let's make this an enjoyable environment, somewhere where you can de-stress all that stress that you had before. And also responsibility of the parents to, I find a lot of parents really push their kids into studying. And I think obviously it's really important, studying is very important, but I think it's kind of taking a step back and realising that the world is a much bigger place. And
I think
not
more
all
and
about
more academia loses its value
Yeah.
slightly as each generation comes, because now there's a lot more emphasis on extracurriculars and sports and leadership and skills like that, because, you know, AI is coming to take all of us, and essay writing may not be as valuable.
Doom and gloom.
Essay writing may not be as valuable as skills that you gain in sports and actually
100%.
experiencing teamwork and collaborative work, etc., etc.
100%.
I don't know. I think academics are important. I think knowing how
Yes,
to write
of
properly is
course,
really,
yeah.
really important. And I appreciate AI coming on board.
Yeah.
Potentially a completely separate topic, but I think there are certain core skills that we should maintain as well. I mean, what happens, you know, when something shuts down, you can't use it, and all of a sudden, like, what do I do? What do I do? I think it's really important that there is a balance, but it has to be a healthy one. You know,
Exactly.
like with everything. It has
And I
to be
think a lot of
healthy balance.
people do struggle with that healthy balance and not making their extracurriculars a toxic environment. Sometimes I think it can be overdone. However, I think extracurriculars are very important, and for me, they're a big outlet in my life.
I think as well it's vocational things as well. I know that they're doing apprenticeship schemes and stuff, but I mean, I'm not even that old, and I would say when I was in school, it was very much like there were certain avenues and university degrees you did, and you would go down the university route as well. That's another thing, a whole topic in itself, going down the university route or not going down the university route. But I can say right now, as a 26-year-old who left uni about 2 years ago, I would say that my skills that I learned from swimming and doing extracurricular activities and being in a team, I actually think are more valuable to my day-to-day life than my degree is. Don't get me wrong, my degree was I really enjoyed my degree. It was really fun. I did learn a lot. But I wouldn't have been able to do my degree without the skills that I had from my extracurricular activities. And I think it's kind of finding the balance. Like Liam said, obviously studies are important, but they're not the be-all and end-all. And I think a lot of people are very much focused on that at the GCSE and A-level age. And I think there's a lot bigger things out there that are more important, in my opinion.
Yeah. So to sum
They're
that
so
all
young,
up,
aren't they? They're so young, and most of them don't know what they want to do.
Exactly.
Really.
No.
Sophia, no, like they hear the word GCSEs at A-levels, and for them it's like, that is what my mind has to focus on.
You don't realise until you're older that actually, I'm not saying they're not important, but
it's not.
there's so many more opportunities that can come your way as you grow older. So many vocations you can take
Very
up.
true,
Like
yeah.
all because you weren't successful down one avenue doesn't mean that all doors are now closed.
So I think we can all emphasize the importance of balance in a young person's life. And I also think that experience, and because of how hands-on extracurriculars and sports are, you gain a lot from that avenue as opposed to academics on its own.
I think definitely, and I think what I've noticed is, especially in schools, that sports have become less prominent.
Yeah.
And that's something that rattles me a little bit, because I remember I was obviously growing up, every kid did sport in school, everybody. Now it's like there are so many choices that the kids get given, and I don't think that
there is a lot of overwhelm.
I don't think they're in a position sometimes to make those choices. That's why, you know, where the older generation are raising them to teach them and shape and mould them into what they're going to grow up to be. And I think the fact that now in the education system there has, and I don't know where it is now, but I know at one point definitely, compared to when I was in school to a few generations later, there was a definite shift away from sports in school. Like you saw, like the sports days at comprehensive level. You know,
although I'm really invested in this conversation, we're unfortunately running out of time. So thank you all for being here today. And thank you for joining us on our first 3 episodes of the Youth Room. I would also like to thank our crew for their contributions, and thank you for the viewer at home for watching. Good night from me, Ariana, and GBC.